Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this new 2026 year of Inspired Coach podcast. I can hardly believe that we're into the 90s now in the number of episodes of Inspired Coach. We're going to hit 100 this year, which is really exciting. And so thank you very much for being here with us. We are so grateful to you for being so. We are starting this year with an incredible success story with Winitha Bonney OAM. Let me tell you a little bit more about Winitha. Winitha is a leadership strategist, a motivational keynote speaker, coach, and author of both Back Yourself, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Take Your Spot in the World. With over a decade of experience leading high-performing teams and organisations, Winitha empowers people to step confidently into their influence, take bold decisions, and create lasting positive change. She combines real-world leadership experience with practical strategies to foster inclusive, resilient and high-performing individuals and also organisational cultures. You can find her at winitha.com. So this is a truly wonderful success story and episode, and we are so proud to have Winitha as one of our alumni in the Beautiful You Coaching Academy. Winitha has carved out such a highly successful international jet-setting business for herself as a strategist and a coach and especially a speaker. And she talks about that with us in this episode ahead. Winitha is very in demand as a speaker, and she also has an extensive amount of experience in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is a true inspiration, and so we hope that you love this very first episode of the 2026 year with Winitha ahead. Winitha Bonney, welcome to Inspired Coach Podcast. We are so thrilled to have you on as our latest guest and success story.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Winitha, what a journey you have been on, and what a truly extraordinary, thriving coaching, speaking, consulting business you are running. And I can't wait to dive into your story today. And I would love to just begin by asking you, what was taking place in your world and life when you first decided to train as a coach and expand the work that you were already doing in the world at that time?
Oh, how far back do we go? So I originally was looking for a mentor, and then I found this incredible woman who was an ontological coach. And that got me really curious because I could see that she was talking to me in a way that was different than traditional mentoring. That was the first sort of instance that made my mind pop and be like, oh, what is this? Would I like to do it? And then I happened to be the CEO of a non-for-profit organization. And there was this wonderful woman on our board who has since sadly passed away, who was a coach. And I started asking her questions about it. And she actually introduced me to Beautiful You Academy and the coaching program. And I'm forever grateful for her for that gift. And, you know, after our board sessions, she would sit down with me and I'd just ask her questions and get to know more about the coaching world. And then the opportunity came where I finally was able to participate in the program and was completely blown away, not just by the experience and the community, but in particular from a business perspective, how much of yourself that you had put into the program. I was completely blown away that this came genuinely from a place of heart and service and care, and also inclusion, which unfortunately a lot of coaching programs don't have a focus on. And I could just see that everyone in my cohort that was there, we were meant to be there. And I've enjoyed some beautiful friendships with some of the wonderful women in my cohort since then.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and your experience, Winitha, of coming into coaching and becoming a coach yourself is a story that many people share. And that is they saw a coach themselves first and enjoyed the experience of being a client so much that it sparked something in them to think about that they might like to hold space and service for others in that way. When you first started out with your coaching, I know that it had a very particular focus, and this area is still extremely important to you around the topics of diversity, equity, inclusion. And it has expanded since then. So tell us a little bit about what it was like for you when you first started seeing clients and a little bit about the journey that you've been on so far. Like, I know it's a big one, but your work is really expanding now in the most incredible ways.
Yeah, so coaching is a tool that I think the perception with a lot of coaches is that they would work with clients one-on-one, but coaching really is a communication tool that you can utilize in any setting and any environment. And it's a conversational tool. So even with a lot of corporate organizations, they are now having a focus with in terms of their leadership development on coaching as a communication tool. So I started my practice in diversity, equity, inclusion. In terms of my one-on-one coaching, I started off coaching Black, Indigenous people of color around some of the barriers and challenges that they were experiencing in life, in leadership, in career, in starting or running a business, to move us from a place of feeling really stuck, feeling really stagnated, feeling really frustrated, to thriving, but importantly, thriving on our terms. And so I started off the one-on-one coaching with that in mind. And then with the DEI work that I have done in the past with consulting to corporate organizations, I've leveraged coaching as a communication tool to help people move from a very strong belief, from a very strong bias around something or someone, to get them moving to take action. So, and I did that for a couple of reasons. One of them was sometimes it can be confronting for people, to be in a situation, usually what we would call a DEI crisis. So as someone has been hurt or harmed as a result of a lack of diversity, equity, inclusion. And so I've been called in. And so when I've been called in, there's this perception that, Winitha's going to tell us off. She's going to yell at us. She's going to, poo-poo all over us. And so I realized that if I just came in and started telling them what to do, they would obviously freeze as a result of that. Going into that shame spiral, guilt, remorse, frustration, all of those feelings. And so what I realized is that coaching was a communication tool that I could utilize because people are more empowered to take action when they feel like they've come up with the answers themselves. And coaching is a tool that's forward focused. We're moving, gently kind of helping them move towards a path that is aligned to them. And that's essentially what gets results. So I've been in a lot of leadership rooms, executive rooms, board rooms, where we've had very strong, heated, uncomfortable, difficult conversations. And I will tap into my coaching questions and I will just simply ask those questions. And it's been a really powerful tool to get people moving to take action rather than just talking about why we can't do this and why we can't do X, Y, Z.
Oh my gosh, I could not love this more. And Winitha, I want to stay here for a second because my heart has been pinged and my curiosity as well in being in the seat that I'm in and knowing some of the things that many of the people listening to this podcast, either as emerging or established coaches, would want to know a little bit more about. And that is this. You are obviously a coach and a consultant and a guide that is, based on what you've just shared, very used to having difficult and challenging conversations as a coach with clients, whether that be one-on-one or in groups. Now, this is something that every coach, no matter what type of work that they do, clients they have, niche they work in, will experience at some point or another in their career, but it can bring up a lot of fears and a lot of discomfort. And so I'd love to ask you, what would be something you'd like to share with everyone listening to help them with having challenging conversations? Like you've mentioned about the power of continuing to ask questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with everyone that's great for them to know or do to help boost them with that?
I think two frames. One is that it's got nothing to do with me.
Great. Yes.
And
don't take it personally.
it's got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with them and what's sitting underneath that. And I feel like that's where the power of coaching comes into play, because it's about peeling back the layers and getting to the root of what is driving that discomfort, what is driving that belief or that value, or because we don't know. And it got explained to me by another thought leader in terms of psychological safety, that it's such a difficult space to also kind of lead and to kind of live, because we actually can't see people's psychological wounds. We don't know what people have gone through. We don't know what experiences they've gone through. And as I've sat with leaders and executives one-on-one and got to know a little bit of their personal story, then I've realized, that's why they think like that. That's why they feel like that. That's why they lead like that. There are a lot of leaders out there that haven't worked through their trauma, haven't worked through their own, haven't done the inner work within themselves, that are just in this constant fight or flight mode, driven by results and performance, with no moment to pause and sit and reflect on, why am I really showing up this way? And is it helpful or harmful to myself and to others? And so because I also design and deliver, leadership programs. I speak a lot on leadership at conferences. And I've always said, to whether it's a keynote or whether it's a program, so this is a container for you to sit and pause and ask ourselves if the way that we're showing up is truly helping others. Because real leadership starts from within, but it's also not about title. It's not about your position or level. It's not about the amount of money that you're earning. Real leadership is about understanding your responsibility to contribute towards society. Because if we go back 50,000 years, if we go back 60,000 years, there was no CEO of a company. There was no board. Leadership was about how we step up, show up to contribute towards community. It had actually nothing to do with us. We had elders, we had priestess, we had people within our community that had the responsibility to create a space of nurturing, of safety, of a space where we could all thrive. It was a responsibility. And so that's where real leadership stems from. And so coaching is a tool that we can, even in some of my keynotes, I will pause and ask a question. I will ask the question and then pause for an uncomfortable amount of time, so that people can have that small little container to understand, is this helpful? Is this harmful? Is this the best version of me? this may be getting results, but is it stopping us from getting the results that we could possibly be getting from here? So I think that's why a lot of corporate organizations now are starting to double down, and they're starting to put their leaders into coaching programs and starting to encourage, motivate, and empower their leaders to utilize coaching as a communication tool. And that's for a whole range of reasons as well.
Oh my gosh, my heart is on fire for everything that you have said there about leadership, Winitha. You know, what you're talking about there through my life lens is what I call sacred leadership. Leadership that is relational, leadership that is and always will begin with the inner work, that is not about hierarchy and titles and all of those kinds of things. And gosh, that could be a whole other episode that, you know, we talk about. So thank you for your gifts, and thank you for the work that you're doing in that area, because we just need a paradigm shift at every level of society about how we view leadership and what it is, knowing that in particular at the moment in the world we are seeing examples of leadership that is not sacred, that is not relational or inclusive in many, many different ways. Winitha, one of the things that you mentioned in there that I want to talk about as a part of your success in the business that you now have is speaking. Because speaking is a huge component of what you now do in the world. And obviously it was something that you were widely doing well before you trained to become a coach, but it's clearly expanded. I would love to know, was that expansion for you deliberate and conscious and something that you actively strove for? Or has it come as a result of just organically the wonderful work that you've been doing with individuals and organisations where they've just started to ask you to speak more?
So I've been asked to speak usually around leadership since 2008. And it was something that when I get asked to do, I do it. If my clients want me to do it, I'll show up. And I love speaking because it's this amalgamation of my two loves. One is dance and, being on stage. And the other one is, connecting with people and just being around people. And conferences and events is such a wonderful opportunity to I've made so many new friends and got the opportunity to meet so many different people. But I guess I came to a point, so long story short, about over 10 years ago, I actually had a complete and utter mental breakdown. And from that place, I realized that I needed to have been broken down in order to be open to what I feel for myself and my own beliefs, what the universe had wanted for me. And I actually had an out-of-body experience where I was shown images, I heard words around me being a speaker. Immediately I was like, no, not me. And I pushed against it. I pushed and pushed and pushed against it to a point where I got to this crux in the road. And it was I was working with a mentor who is one of Australia's OGs in terms of speaking, very prolific. And I had never shared with him that experience. I'd never shared with him that it was my dream to be, a keynote speaker and a motivational speaker. And we had a session planned about speaking about how am I going to get to the next level of growth in my business. And he said to me, Winitha, let's pause here and actually talk about you. What is that next level of you? And I gave permission to, I guess I decided in that session to open up my energy rather than being very closed and guarded because, he's a white man and I just have that sort of defensive mechanism, even though I've been working with him for a couple of years. And for the first time in my life, I just gave that permission of I feel like I know him enough to get this sense of he's a very energetic human being. and maybe he can feel something in me. And so when I, opened up my energy, at the end of it, he said to me, what would you say if I said that you should be a motivational keynote speaker? And I know that he doesn't say that lightly to just anyone. And when he said that, everything in my body just reacted. It's like my whole body just lit on fire. The hand, because I'd never mentioned it to him or anyone within our sphere of, in our network. No one. I kept it a secret. That's when I knew the universe was knocking on my door again. And I felt within myself, it was a huge gamble. It was a huge risk to completely change and pivot, because speaking in itself is a very different, if you're going to pursue speaking full time, where it is your primary delivery mode, and the other delivery modes like training and coaching are more secondary, tertiary, that business model is very different to if everything was at the same level, or if, for example, you were focusing on, for example, coaching, because there's two types of speaking. There's paid speaking, where you're paid to come up and present. And then there's what we would call distribution speaking. So when you're speaking and you're sharing your expertise generously in service, usually pro bono or for a very low fee, a low pro bono, as some of my friends say. And there will be people, you might make an offer at the end, and people will have an opportunity to engage with your product or your services, or inquire and get to know you a little bit more. So for example, in the coaching space, they may take you up on an offer to have a discovery session, to attend a webinar and get to know about yourself and the different offerings that you may have. And so that was my the start of my adventure into speaking. It's been a whole hot experience since, but
But obviously it's going so well for you, because
yeah.
I mean, well, at least it certainly looks like that to me from the outside, as someone outside looking in, is that it seems like it has become a very significant model and part of your business. And so what do you most love about it? Like, I'd love to ask you that. Like, what's the thing you most love about speaking?
I guess, well, first of all, I love being around people. I just love being around people. I love events. If my calendar permits, I will stay for the whole conference, even though I may not understand some of the other keynote speakers, because they may be industry experts in that particular space. For example, I spoke at a building simulation conference and I listened to some of the keynotes. I was like, I have no idea what they're saying, but they seem super smart. It's fascinating. But I just loved meeting people from like that particular conference. There was people from all around the world, and I just feel really at home just in the event space and just being around people. And the other thing that happens as a result of when I speak is usually the people that experience discrimination, marginalization, very few people in the audience will always come up to me afterwards, and they will read me like a book, because they'll say, I know why you said that. I know why you said this. But they also come up to me and say, seeing you on stage meant so much to me. I had a trans person come up, send me a message on LinkedIn saying that, the stories that I shared, the messages that I had brought them to tears because they felt seen and they felt heard. And I said to them, babe, I actually saw you in a crowd of like 600 people. I actually saw you, not because of your physical, how you physically presented, but because of your energy, and I wanted you to know that you are valued, that you loved, and you absolutely belong in that space. And I actually was looking for you after the conference to come to get to know you and speak to you. I'm so grateful that you contacted me on LinkedIn. So now we get to be friends. And I get to, connect with you more deeply. And so for me, for me with speaking, it felt like this spiritual mission, but it wasn't until I committed to this and I started speaking more regularly at events that I realized the gravitas of that. So it's not just about the folk that experience discrimination, marginalization, being seen and heard in the person that's speaking. but also in your delivery and some of the stories and IP that I share. But it's also for the other folk that are the ones in air quotation marks in a position of power and privilege. They have, when you are speaking on stage, the perception and unconscious understanding is that you are a leader. Mm-hmm. So there are leaders, and then there are leaders who lead leaders. And when you get up on stage and you speak to a room full of leaders, they see you and hear you and feel you as a leader. And for a lot of people in these rooms, they have not seen or heard or felt a leader like me with my experience. And I think part of the reason why we have the same people in these positions of power is because who has led them? It's been the same old, same old. And that is part of that conditioning in that brain. Because the consultants that are coming in, showing them and guiding them through what to do, how to do it, and why to do it. There's people that come up on these leadership conferences that are speaking to them. These are the leaders that are leading the leaders. And it's the same old people. I've had so many people tell me, because, you must get booked out. You must be flat out because, unconsciously what they're saying, indirectly what they're saying is because I'm a brown person. The event organizers are there ticking. And actually, that's not how the industry works. I have other Black, Indigenous, people of color speakers that I constantly speak to, and their experience has been the same as mine, which is it is hard, it is difficult, and it feels like we're starting from scratch again in terms of the corporate careers that we've had. Because we've all been able to, in air quotation marks, break through those proverbial, glass ceilings, those multiple glass ceilings. But when it comes to speaking, it is the same phenomenon that is experienced just in the world in general. I am usually the only person of color, woman of color, at an event, speaking, looking out to a sea of people. That's why I pick up the people who present differently. Because they are, unfortunately, the few, the handful, the 1% in that audience. But so I know the power of speaking on stage, that it's not just about the messages that I share. It's about my presence. It's actually about being seen for both groups of people, to challenge this idea and notion of who a leader is, but then also to feel seen and heard by the people that experience a lack of belonging and equity every single day.
Winitha, thank you so much for just going into such beautiful and also rawly honest depth about that. Because what you're saying is 100% true. I think there are a lot of people that are assuming, for varying different reasons, that a lot of Black, Indigenous and people of colour now, as long overdue, the world does begin to expand representation in places for a lot of different reasons, just assuming that it's a given, that this is now what is taking place everywhere, and it's not. I see this all the time, that the same types of people, Pale Mouse Dale, get the stages over and over and over again. And it's like, what is going on? It's like, where's the freshness? Where's the difference? Where's the expansion? Why are people so afraid? Or what is locked down here about this? There's a long way to go. There is really a long way to go. And I'm just so grateful that you're out there being this leader of leaders in the way that you are and doing the work that you do. I wish you didn't have to carry so much weight as you did it, because you're forging the path forward in so many ways for so many people. Winitha, as we are coming to a close today, you are clearly, as I know everyone who has been listening to this interview so far, just filled with the most extraordinary wisdom in many, many different areas of life, career, leadership, and business. I would love to just ask you Is there something really potent and powerful that you would love to leave with all of the future coaches, emerging coaches, experienced coaches, and service-based business owners that are listening right now? What would you love to leave them with today?
That growth and change is uncomfortable, and it's meant to feel uncomfortable. So that's the first, I guess, lesson that I've learned for myself that I would like to leave with others, is that when you're doing something new, when you're changing, evolving, growing, have those expectations that, yes, it'd be great if it was easy and came with a sense of ease and sense with flow, but it may bring stuff up and it may challenge you on your own beliefs and your values, because you're part of that evolution. We're part of that evolution process. And the last one is particularly for those that have experienced discrimination, marginalization. Yes, these systems and these structures need to change. And yes, people need to step up, show up, and change this. And let's not wait. Let's not wait for people to do that work, because every time in inclusion, we call it learned helplessness. In psychology, it's called, in inclusion, I've got that the other way around. In inclusion, it's called internalized oppression. In psychology, it's called learned helplessness. And that is when we take on these beliefs. And I often say, particularly to BIPOC folk, Black, Indigenous, people of color folk, that discrimination and marginalization isn't so much physical as it is psychological today. And particularly what we're seeing play out on the global scale is psychology. It is fear tactics being used to, make people believe and feel that they are helpless, that they are powerless. And you will always seek to control that of which you are the most fearful of. 100%. People like in those positions of power do not act and behave the way that they do unless they felt threatened. And they feel threatened by the LGBTIQA plus community. They feel threatened by Black folk, people of color folk, Indigenous folk, people with disabilities, women folk. They feel a whole lot of threatened. So who actually has the power, them or us? So my, call to action is I understand that there is the emotional tax. I understand the cultural load that each and every single one of us pay every time we forge forward and we do this work, even when we just exist. I understand how exhausting and tiring it is to fall down, step up again, fall down, step up again, fall down, and just live this life. I understand how difficult and exhausting it is. And I truly believe there is no other way, because I will not sit down, I will not shut up, and I will not sit in my corner. And that is one of the reasons why I have been pushed by the universe to be on those stages, is to be seen and to challenge the various stereotypes that is putting this world into a big, giant black hole. It is not just marginalized people that are getting oppressed, it is everyone. Because even with inclusion, we say when we experience inclusion for marginalized folk, everyone experiences a better quality of life. The same is true with oppression as well. So we've got to keep showing up. Don't look for belonging with others. Feel that within yourself. Don't look to be seen, heard, or valued by others. Feel that within yourself. There are gifts that you can give to yourself right now. And when you give yourself those gifts, no one can take that away from you. And also know that every time we expect others to do for us what we can do for ourselves, we hand our power over, and a power over dynamic starts happening. So in my own experience, give these gifts to yourself. Feel it within yourself. They're gifts that no one can strip away with you, no matter how hard or amazing life comes at you. And know that every time you are able to give those gifts to yourself, we are able to give those gifts to others.
Winitha Bonney, you are a gift. Thank you so much for being with us here on Inspired Coach Podcast today. We are so proud of all of your success, your journey, your leadership, your trailblazing in everything that you do. And I just send you so much love and best wishes for your continuing coaching and speaking and consulting and everything that I know you're going to do from here.
Thank you.